is your time to shine. Okay, but hold on. Not just that this is your time to shine, but we're not talking about just any kind of shine. No, not just any kind of shine. How many of you know that this is your time to shine bright like a diamond? And so I took the liberty of doing some research to find out what it takes for us to create the diamond that's within us. And so here's what I learned. In order for a diamond to be formed, and I believe that all of us, that we have a diamond inside of us. Raise your hand if you know you got a diamond in you. And so here's what I know. That as I started doing the research on the internet, here's what I found out. That in order for you to form a diamond, the diamond has to be in a perfect position. I want you to repeat after me, position yourself. That the diamond has to position themselves within an organization like Traci Lynn Fashion Jewelry. That a diamond, when they're trying to perform themselves, they've got to position themselves with the right leadership like Dr. Lynn. That the diamond, when it's trying to form themselves, they've got to position themselves with the right mindset. That when the diamond is trying to form itself, it's got to position themselves to the right people, the right team, the right consultants, the right partners. Say it again, position yourself. But how many of you know this? Sometimes you can be out of position. Let me tell you when you're not in position. You're not in position when you got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Listen, you're not in position when you're holding on to that job where they're paying you just enough so that you don't quit, and you're working just hard enough so they don't let you off. You are not in position when you're allowing somebody else to talk you out of your dream. And I know what it's like. For a long time, I wasn't in position. And yeah, maybe I went to school at Florida State University. I got my master's in corporate accounting. I studied and prepared for the CPA exam. I landed a job at one of the largest professional service firms in the world. But I was still out of position. And I finally got in position once I built up some courage in December of 2004 to walk into the office of the lady by the name of Tammy. And you see, for me, that was a defining moment. You know, Kevin Costner said that the defining moment, when the defining moment comes, either you define the moment or the moment defines you. Either you define the moment, you decide to keep pushing through after hearing no over and over again. Either you define the moment and you keep having your home shows even after you've confirmed 15 people and only 2 showed up. Either you define the moment and you keep pushing through and making sure that you're going to all the conventions and making sure that you're talking to everybody who gets around you, or the moment defines you. Yeah. You decide to play small. You decide to give up all your goals and your dreams. You decide to let somebody else talk you out of changing the legacy of your last name. And so, now that you understand the importance of positioning yourself, I want to hear you say it now in a different kind of posture. Let me hear you say, position yourself. Position yourself. Absolutely. And so when I continue to do a little more research, here's what I found out. That in order for a diamond to be formed, that the diamond has to undergo some serious pressure. The kind of pressure when you've been talking to people about your business and they keep telling you no. The kind of pressure when you're getting into bed with somebody and they're the ones trying to talk you out of the business. The kind of pressure when you've confirmed 10, 15 people to the home show, to the office show, and yet it's just you and the host. The kind of pressure.
Come on.
When your upline decide to stop working the business. The kind of pressure. When you don't know where you're going to get the money from to even make it to the convention. That kind of pressure. And so we know, since we know that there is going to be a lot of pressure, then what it means is that we have to find some compelling reasons, some things that make it worth it for us. We got to find a why. It was Nietzsche that said the man or the woman who knows the why for living can endure almost anyhow. Right now, I want you to look at the person on your right and your left and say, find your why. Find your why. Yes. You got to find your why that's going to allow you to keep pushing forward. You got to find your why that's going to allow you to keep pushing forward when you want to literally just stop, when you want to curl up in the bed and not even get out. And so when I think about that, I think about my good friend. His name is Eric Rett. And Eric is a former NFL player. Eric played in the NFL for 8 years. He played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Cleveland Browns, and the Baltimore Ravens, who are on their way to the Super Bowl, who I know Dr. Lynn said, hey, Ray Lewis, right? And so one day, you know, Eric and I, we've been friends for about 8 years. So one day I was sitting down, I was watching ESPN, and they were sharing a statistic, and here's what they said. They said that less than 1% of the gentlemen that you see who are playing college football, who are playing high school football all across the nation, less than 1% will make it to the NFL. So I started looking at my friend a little different. You know, I remember we were in the car and I had to find a way to ask him this without offending him. I said, Eric, no disrespect, Eric. I said, Eric, you're not the strongest guy I know. I said, Eric, you're not the fastest guy that I know. But I'm just trying to figure out, how is it that you were able to be part of that 1%? And so Eric's got one of those personalities. Eric said, oh, you really want to know? I said, yeah, I want to know. He said, okay, come on. And so we drove to a place in Hollywood, Florida. And there's a neighborhood in there called Carver Ranches. And Eric pointed out this little building. He said, you see that building right there? I said, yeah. He said, I used to live in that unit right there. He said, when I lived there was no central AC. It was rat infested. It's 400 square feet. He said, there's 2 bedrooms. Me and my brother Mike, we shared a room. And my brother Ernest and Stanley shared another room. And he said, for 18 years, I watched my mom sleep on the same green couch. He said the couch wasn't even long enough for her. Her legs used to hang off. As a matter of fact, she had been on the couch for so long, and it started to cave down. We would take cardboard, we would take cloth, we would prop it underneath so we can prop it up. And it still wouldn't work. And he said, man, I remember one time, man. He said, my mom she was sleeping on that couch. He said, I remember just standing over my mom saying, one day I'm going to get my mom off that couch. And he said, you see, I was in an area where football was a big thing. I didn't have plans to become a football player, but in my neighborhood, this was the way that you made money. So he said, I joined the football team. And he said, when I first got involved, I wasn't all into it. I even thought about quitting at times. But here's what he said. He said, I had to get my mom off that couch. And he said that sometimes I'd be running the game. It's a physical sport. You get hurt. I'd have pain in my back. I'd want to go off to the sidelines. But all I kept thinking about is, I got to get my mom off that couch. And he said, man, maybe you don't understand. Sometimes we would practice. We would run up and down the field. And when the rest of the guys got off the field, I kept running. Because I knew that I had to get my mom off that couch. And finally, with that work ethic, Eric got him a scholarship to the University of Florida. And so I said, hold on, Eric. You went to the University of Florida? Well, wasn't that guy Emmitt Smith playing at the time? And he said, hold on, man. Maybe you don't understand. We were broke. We didn't have no cable TV. I don't know who Emmitt Smith was. And he said, besides, Emmitt Smith didn't have no mom sleeping on no couch. And he said, so I rode the bench the first year. And on that second year, when they had me sitting there's another guy who was starting before me. And there were times that I thought about quitting, but all I thought about was getting my mom off that couch. And finally, the guy who was running in front of me, he ended up getting her. And I knew my time was going to come. And I could sense it. The running back coach, he looked over at me. And at that time, he didn't call me Eric. He called me Big Man. He said, Big Man, you ready? Eric said, Coach had no idea. I had to get my mom off that couch. When Eric Rett got on that field, the University of Florida would never see another running back like it. Eric Rett would break every single record set by Emmitt Smith. As a matter of fact, in 1994, Eric was recruited in the second round by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The very first thing that he did with that signing bonus was drive down to sunny South Florida, neighborhood and plantation, bought a 4,500 square foot home, 3-car garage, and most importantly, he got his mom off that couch. And so here's what I say to you. You may not have a mom that's sleeping on the couch, but you gotta find some compelling reasons that's gonna make it worth it for you. When you feel tired and you want to quit, when you don't feel like showing up to the convention because you don't know how you're going to pay for your plane ticket, when you've been booking your home shows and your office shows confirming 15, 10 people and only 2 people have showed up, when you've got a big dream but right now you got a small check, you got to find some compelling reasons why, because that's what's required in order to form a diamond. I want you to look at the person on your right and your left and say, find a compelling why. And so I didn't stop on the research. I didn't stop on the research to find out what it takes to form a diamond. What I find is that diamonds are formed at the center of the earth, in the mantle of the earth. But here's the thing about diamonds. Even though they're formed in the center of the earth, they find a way to come up to the surface. In other words, diamonds find a way to show up. I want you to look at the person on your right and your left and say, show up. Show up. That's right. Woody Allen said that 80% of success is simply showing up. You got to be willing to show up in spite of the circumstances. You got to show up in spite of that conversation going on in your mind. You got to show up despite what's going on in your bank account. So I think about this woman that had this diamond in her. And she's sitting someplace out here in the audience right now. And that's my mom. Her name is Andy Henriquez. She came to this country from the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. She came here from Haiti. She had less than $150 to her name when she got here. But she understood that sometimes when you're trying to form that diamond in you, that you've got to go through a process. How many of you guys can, let's all say together, go through the process? Yes. And so one of the first things that she did when she got here, she got a job at a purse factory. The purses would come down the assembly line, and for 8 hours a day, she would go ahead and reverse the purses and prepare them for stitching. Sometimes you got to be willing to do the things that others won't do today in order to have the things that others won't have tomorrow. That's a Les Brown classic. Write that down. Say that again. And so she went from there to making up beds in Miami, Florida. And after 23 years of being here, she found this building in Delray Beach, Florida. And she rented out so she can open up this Haitian cuisine. And you guys know what it's like when you're building your business. You got to talk to people. You got to put in the work. Sometimes you don't see the fruits of your labor right away. And so after about 2 years of running and operating this restaurant, and she's just now starting to have a customer base, she gets a knock on the door. And when she opens up the door, this gentleman, he serves her some legal documents. Now we gotta stop right here, because you guys are down here in South Florida. And see, South Florida has a lot of Haitian people here. And when Haitian people are surprised, here's what they say, oh. So I want y'all to say it with me, oh. So that means something is not good at the moment. And when she got this form and she started to flip through it, what she realized is that this property, that she had been paying her rent every single month on time to the landlord, that the property that represented her goals and her dreams, that property was going into foreclosure. So she was devastated. But like many of you, she just wanted to shine bright like a diamond. And so she just decided to just call the telephone number that they had on the paper. And my mom has a deep accent, and she said, "Hello? Hello, this is Marie. I don't understand. Yes, I received these papers. They say that the property is going to foreclosure. I don't understand. I pay my rent every month. I pay my rent on time." And the lady said, "Oh, Marie, we're so sorry. Even though you've been paying your rent every single month on time, The landlord has a mortgage, and he has been paying his mortgage. The mortgage is attached to the property, so therefore we can foreclose on the property. Mom said, I don't understand. This is how I take care of my family. This is what I work all my life for. My mom hung up the phone. But here's what she knew. That when you're trying to form that diamond inside of you, that you gotta be willing to show up. And so my mom figured, she said, just at a minimum, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to this foreclosure sale and see whoever wins the bid on this sale, to see if I can convince them, if I could stay in the property and continue to rent it. I'm a good tenant, I pay every single month. So my mom drove up to the foreclosure sale. And before she could figure out exactly what was taking place, the auctioneer came up to the podium. He said, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start the bidding process on 540 West Atlantic Avenue. If you're here to bid on the property, please raise your hands. And so there was only one person there, the auctioneer and the representative from the bank. And so naturally, the representative of the bank raised her hand. And then my mom, who had no intentions on bidding on the property, my mom, who doesn't even understand how this works, through an act of faith, like what Stacy said, that Martin Luther King said that faith is taking the first step, even when you can't see the entire staircase. And so she raised her hand. And the auctioneer said, very well, we're going to start the bidding process on 540 West Atlantic Avenue. We're going to start the bid at $30,000. The representative from the bank naturally raised her hand, said $30,000. My mom, caught up in the excitement, has no idea how this thing works. My mom busts out, said, $35,000, right? The auctioneer's looking at my mom like, why did she just jump by 5,000? She said $36,000. Now my mom, she's a fast learner, so she said $37,000. The auctioneer, the bank representative said $38,000. My mom said $39,000. The banker said $40,000. This went on and on and on. And finally it got to the bank representative, said $74,000. And my mom said $75,000. The bank representative said $76,000. But let me tell you something. My mom started getting a little attitude. And you know, as a matter of fact, she's like, I don't have this money anyway. I didn't come here to bid on no property. So on the last one, my mom goes, $76,500. And so something special happened this time. The auctioneer got to the podium. He said, $76,500 going once? No answer. $76,500 going twice? No answer. He said $76,500 sold to the woman who was willing to show up. To the woman who was willing to show up in spite of the circumstances. To the woman who was willing to show up even though English wasn't her first language. To the woman who was willing to show up even though she didn't know how she was going to do it. So here's what I say to you. That every one of you has a diamond in you. But what's important is that you got to be willing to show up. You got to show up in spite of that conversation going on in your mind. You have to show up in spite of what's going on in your bank account. You've got to show up even when you've booked 10, 15 people to your home shows, to your office shows, and they're not showing up. You got to show up for your life, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't, nobody else will. I want you to look at the person on your right and left and say, show up for your life.